Good evening. On behalf of the Academy Council and staff, we welcome you to the Academy of Medicine's 164th Annual Meeting, Part 2, celebration of our 50-year physicians and our award recipient of the Daniel Drake Award. Tonight, we are celebrating wellness for all physicians in the greater Cincinnati area. We will have a presentation of our Daniel Drake Humanitarian Award. 11 of our 50-year physicians will be honored this evening, and we will have a presentation given by Dr. Amy Meckley on the current research to consider now to improve your tomorrow. What is the Academy of Medicine of Cincinnati? We were founded in 1857. The Academy of Medicine is a nonpartisan medical society representing physicians in all medical specialties and practice environments. In 1960, the Academy organized a foundation which serves as its philanthropic arm, providing grants to local health-related organizations. We are an advocacy, we're your voice, we are community for patients. We provide network, educational, and social programs, as well as physician wellness, as well as member benefits and services. And for those that have not visited our website, I strongly encourage you to visit our newly website at www.academyofmedicine.com. I would like to introduce our 2021 Academy Council, President Wyman Morris, Past President Matthew Hardin, President-elect Ann Like, and our counselors, Barry Brook, Joe Chang, Gregory Kennenbeck, Becky McGilligan, Adam Miller, Kathleen O'Leary, Odell Owens, Chris Papzicki, Michael Shea, and Rebecca Short. Dr. Andrew Markowitz, a past president of the Academy of Medicine of Cincinnati, currently works with TriHealth as a physician advisor. An advisor works with other physicians to think and ink by painting the picture of their patients. Better documentation supports the care delivered and substantiates the billing to ensure companies who are actively engaged in demanding more but paying less from doctors and hospitals. Physician advisors work behind the scenes to help hospitals stay in compliance with its ever-changing government regulations and to advocate for the patient. Dr. Markowitz?
Now I'm unmuted. Thank you. Thanks, Natalie. First, I'd like to apologize to Dr. Barron as he expected a really short introduction, but I wanted the audience to appreciate the fullness of his selfless acts. As always, we start with Dr. Barron's pedigree. He trained at the George Washington University Medical School in Washington, D.C., then internal medicine internship at Jackson Memorial Hospital, followed by dermatology residency at the Cleveland Metropolitan Hospital, capping it with a dermatology fellowship at the University of Cincinnati. He is board certified by both the American Board of Dermatology and the American Board of Dermatopathology. He was an assistant professor of dermatology at the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine from 1985 to 1993. He was the director of the Richfield Laboratory of Dermatopathology from 1993 to 2018. He's still practicing as a dermatopathologist. He has been a member of many professional societies and has authored many papers and many presentations. But let's get to the matter at hand. The foundation believes that he deserves the Daniel Drake Humanitarian Award for 2021 based on contributions beyond the expected ones of a physician. He has acted by the simple rule, do the right thing. His dermatopathology review course in Cincinnati, which he created in 1988, not only helped generations of physicians, their students and patients, but also the community with donations to a shelter for battered women or charities like the Drop-In Center, now known as the David and Rebecca Barron Center for Men, a new homeless shelter. My teachers taught me that the highest form of charity is to help sustain a person before they become impoverished by offering a substantial gift in a dignified manner or by extending a suitable loan, or by helping them find employment or establish themselves in business so as to make it unnecessary for them to become dependent on others. His wife and he have exceeded this 8th level of charity. As noted in his nomination letter by Dr. Rebecca Short, there is so much that he has done humbly and without credit that has made such an impact in the lives of Cincinnatians. Helping people in need is a personal mission for him and his wife. Funding well-known and unknown charities extends his wife's and his benevolent impact. While not an exclusive list, these include renovation of the Prospect House, a 60-bed treatment facility, infrastructure development in an African village, support for overcoming addiction, the Bethany House, New Beginnings, which is a branch of Lighthouse, and 2 full scholarships to a local Catholic high school. His continued efforts combine his time, selfless effort, and monies. This truly is what defines one's legacy and associates one's name with a life lived well. He well deserves to be in the company of the prior winners of the Daniel Drake Humanitarian Award, having provided similar selfless efforts. Dr. Short captured it with Harry Truman's quote, "It is amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit." Tonight, we will give you the credit. It is with great honor that I, on behalf of the Foundation for the Academy of Medicine of Cincinnati, present to you Dr. David Barron, this year's Daniel Drake Humanitarian Award.
Can people hear me?
Yes.
Can people hear me on the event?
Yes.
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
we
sound
can
good.
hear you.
Can you hear me? Natalie, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Wonderful. Okay, very good. Andrew, thank you. That was such a nice introduction. I mean, I didn't even know who you were talking about. But seriously, and one thing may happen, hopefully I got it out of my system. This is a very emotional thing for me, which maybe I'm starting already. We'll understand as I fill in some of these gaps. Yeah, I'm very humbled and honored to receive this Daniel Drake Humanity Award. I want to thank the Academy Foundation who felt I was worthy of it, and Dr. Rebecca Short who nominated me. This came as a total surprise. Since I'll have a little time, my sponsor gets a kick. The only reason I'm on this program tonight is because of the Spence Bridge when it got a fire. What happened was people had to start diverting their routes to get into the Ohio. And Rebecca Short found a route that every day she was passing the homeless shelter with our name on it. And she remembered something from years ago or earlier about me. And she thought I'd be a good candidate for this. So if the bridge was never shut down, she wouldn't have ridden by the center and I wouldn't be talking with you right now. So I guess things happen for a reason, right? And I will also want to thank my colleagues and friends and family for their support through the years. My wife, Rebecca, who I love to death, has been my side and has encouraged me as well as participate. That is why I submitted a picture of both of us. Besides, it's a lot easier on your eyes to look at her than me. My professional life, Andrew, I think sort of touched on this. Dr. Daniel Richfield, who I named the lab after, was my mentor, and he was like a father to me. And most physicians do not know who I am because my specialty has been so limited to dermatopathology. I really, like with Rebecca Short, I really only know the docs who are dermatologists and family practitioners and plastic surgeons. So, I'm an unknown person in the city. So like Andrew discussed, I made a name for myself, not through research or writing papers, but through teaching. And he said, I approximately 30 years ago created a preparatory course and term path for third-year residents ready to take their boards. It's a large portion of their exam, and they need to pass this section. And it had become so popular that 70 to 90% of all the third-year residents nationally have attended. It has been very rewarding to see that I've helped over 5,000 residents pass their boards. Through this, I became nationally recognized and received biopsies and consults from all over. And all proceeds from day one from this course, I have given to charity. And this is where it gets somewhat emotional from here on in. My personal life was indirectly led me to this award. Hopefully you're there, Corky. A little over 33 years ago, I was mired in an alcoholic abyss and felt hopeless and suicidal. Thank God I agreed to meet a physician who was in recovery for 10 years, Dr. Corwin Smith, who told me his story, which was similar to mine. He told me how his life changed remarkably, which gave me hope. I have not had a drink since then. He saved my life. I learned early in my recovery program that giving back is essential to my recovery and my emotional well-being. We have a slogan that says, you have to give it away to get it. This does not pertain to money. In reality, your time is the greatest asset you can give someone, and that's why that slogan came about. And except for vacations and illnesses, I've devoted 3 to 10 hours a week for 33 years to help other alcoholics achieve or maintain sobriety. Although there are many failures, I cannot describe the joy it brings when someone, quote unquote, gets it. To see someone in great despair, family falling apart, job in jeopardy, transition to a happy, productive person with family reunited is an indescribable, rewarding experience that I don't want you guys all to have alcoholism, but if you did get alcoholism, this is a great experience you can have. Kidding. Now, there'll be some major organizations I'm going to touch on. Andrew did also, but we have done some other things. We have helped fund the General Scholarship Fund at Archbishop Muller High School, which everyone knows what that is. And we provided 2 full scholarships for underprivileged students who have not had the opportunity otherwise. These students are both doing very well in college, and one, we're crossing our fingers that maybe next year he could be an MBA prospect. I mean, that is really cool, okay? And Rebecca grew up in a small town in central Kentucky where Catholicism was very strong. And the church that she attended as a young lady desperately needed a sound system, and we provided that. She asked, I said, absolutely, honey. That means something to you and your parents, we're going to do it. And I've helped some other smaller charities, like Andrew mentioned. Chris Lewis, who lives across the street, Dr. Lewis, has been helping to develop a village in Africa, and I've tried to help fund that. And we've done ice cream events for the local community and other supporting organizations. But really, there's some major, ones I want to talk about, and the people. As my practice grew, I felt that we needed to do more. My wife and I set up a foundation, the David and Rebecca Barron Foundation, with the main purpose to help those less fortunate in our community and those lives affected by drug addiction and alcoholism. These agencies, as you can imagine, are not as well received as the arts, and we felt we had to be the people to fill in that gap. Every so often, I'll get random calls from good charities, right? And I always answer this way: until the inner city agencies get the proper funding, I have to devote all my money to them. So what is someone going to say? Oh, heck with the homeless people. Send it money to us. You know, everyone's like, okay, well, if maybe one day if you have a change, because you really can't respond to that. How can you, you know, respond to something like that? And that's just how I feel. But we have involved, hold on, excuse just 1 second. Okay. We have been involved with many organizations through the years in many capacities. We've served on committees, hosted multiple fundraising. In fact, Sister Mary from Bethany House will remember this one. We probably had 125 people at our house, and it was a 90+ degree day, and my air conditioning broke. Okay, you want to talk about a whole bunch of sweaty people, but you know, we got through that. I think Sister Mary may be on this thing. So with regards to, you know, the larger philanthropic things, my first experience, this is where I get a little, you know, emotional. Maybe I won't, hopefully I won't. My first philanthropic experience was with a man named Buddy Gray. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional again. Darn it. Who was director at the drop-in center, the homeless shelter on 12th Street. We helped many of Buddy's projects. Excuse me. He was the most selfless human being I ever met. He was a devoted advocate to the homeless, 24 hours, 7 days a week. He had no concept of materialism. He rode a little rickety bike and wore clothes that were donated. Approximately 20 years ago, Buddy was killed by one of his residents, a paranoid schizophrenic, off his medicine. When I got called of the news, I was at my lab, and I cried like a baby. Flash forward 20 years. The drop-in center was being moved to Guest Street for increased capacity. They were looking for major donors. Literally 2 weeks earlier, we had made a major commitment to Prospect House, which I will discuss momentarily. I will never forget the conversation I had with Rebecca in our TV room. Without batting an eye, she looked at me and said, "Dave, Buddy was killed before I met you. However, you have talked about this man in such reverence." She said, "You must do this in honor of him. Our donation helped build the facility as well as a new van for transportation." When we had the opening ceremony and I gave my speech, 90% of my talk was concerning Buddy Gray. After the speech, Buddy's girlfriend of 20 years ago, who was also a homeless advocate, came up to me and thanked me so profusely. Said I was so concerned, she said, that no one would know who Buddy Gray is. And I said, that will never happen as long as I'm alive. I show everyone a board we have in the center about Buddy, talk about him. And I know some of the people who on this program tonight who knew Buddy and will back up everything I say. And although named Shelter House, the David and Rebecca Center for Men, in my heart, it will always be the drop-in center. Yeah. You know, having your name on a building is nice, but the real joy is when we bring a meeting in weekly where I'm just Dave, an anonymous recovering alcoholic. Since my favorite attire, as some of you know me, is sweatpants and sneakers, new employees there often think I'm looking for a bed that night, and which is a compliment that I'm just one of many, nothing special. The next organization is the Prospect House, and Dave Logan is the director. Dave was instrumental in my sobriety early on. He's a wonderful man who looks like Santa Claus. Sorry, Dave, that's what you do. He has devoted his entire adult life helping alcoholics and drug addicts. Prospect House is a long-term treatment facility located in Price Hill, which has an incredible 70% success rate on only $60 to $70 a day, which is unheard of for treatments. However, the facility was getting very old, older than 50 years, and was needed a major renovation, both inside and outside. Dave was going to start a campaign to raise the money, which could have taken years and much of his time. Rebecca and I felt that Dave needed to spend his time where he is much needed, and we funded the entire project, as well as a van for transportation. The first two agencies I just mentioned deals with alcoholics. Unfortunately, the next two are agencies that deal with people who may suffer due to someone's alcoholism and drug addiction. New Beginnings is a division of Lighthouse Youth Services. Once again, we came in contact with two special people, Bob Mimicking, the CEO, and Karen Doggett, who's the Director of Residential Services. Both have recently retired after decades of devoted service to the youth of our city. And New Beginnings, which I feel, if Bob's on the phone, on the thing, I helped bring New Beginnings out of the darkness. This is a residential home for girls that have been emotionally, physically, and raped between the ages of 12 and 17. I can't describe to you when I go up there. It's located anonymously in a suburban area. To see these girls, some are 12 and 13, playing with dolls that were put in porno movies and raped and abuse, it goes so past the pale. And I've been involved with them for approximately 30 years. However, 10 years ago, the program was in jeopardy of being terminated due to insufficient funds, and they were considering foster care. Knowing and observing these girls and what they've been through, Rebecca and I could not let that happen. We have provided the necessary funding to keep this program going for the last 10 years. We are thrilled that a new, larger facility is being built under the guise of the new CEO, Paul Hafner. And it's just a miracle that how this came about, going from being dissolved. We gave a bridge long enough that now a new facility is being built. expect we'll have more capacity. And because of things I don't quite understand in the social work field, we'll actually be able to garner more government help to give it stability. My wife and I are co-chairing the current campaign to help fund this endeavor and made a large donation to kickstart it. And then finally, sorry, Bethany House Services. This is a home for abused mothers and children. We helped this organization for decades when Sister Mary Stanton was the executive director. She informed me that often the funding was used for career development to help these women become self-sufficient and able them to live a life free of abuse. For various reasons, since her retirement, we have not hooked up as much as we'd like. A week ago, we spent 3 hours with her. She is the most loving, caring human being you will ever meet. And at times she can be a little spicy. I love her. I love her dearly. My wife and I are blessed. We are in a position to help those less fortunate. It has been an honor and privilege for me to be involved in these organizations. And Rebecca and I feel that we have gotten back way more than we have given. If it wasn't for my recovery from alcoholism, I never would have met my heroes, Buddy Gray, Sister Mary Stanton, Dave Logan, Bob Mimicking, and Karen Doggett. In my heart, these are the people who deserve the humanitarian award. But at the same time, when I speak to them and how in awe of them I am, their response is, oh, we have plenty of Dave Logans and Sister Mary Stanton. We need more Dave Barrons, you know? And so it makes me feel a little better that we are contributing, and hopefully some of you will consider the same. I'm very touched that all of them in Buddy's spirit are on this call tonight. In addition, my spiritual sponsor, Joe A, is present. He has helped guide me through the years, and I am eternally grateful for him. I want to end this by saying, if you, a friend, family member, patient, think they have a drinking problem, I'm available to talk with them day or night in a private, anonymous manner. My number is at the Academy, and please do not hesitate to contact me. It's through this work is what maintains my sobriety and my happiness. I couldn't think of anything more important than, like Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob when they always start. Sorry guys, I slipped up. one alcoholic talking to another is really the greatest thing and joy that I've gotten, you know, other than my family, of course. And once again, I want to thank the foundation for considering me worthy of this award. Thank all of you for being here and listening, and I love all of you. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Andrew.
Dr. Barron, it's Natalie. For those that are on this call this evening and for those that want to help, how can we help?
Well, you don't want to put one thing over another organization or one. We have this ongoing thing to get that new facility up for new beginnings, and any monies would be greatly appreciated. We're getting there, but it takes some time. So if anyone's in a donation mood, let me pick which one. Shelter House, we're doing okay. Prospect.
Whatever's near you.
Yeah, but any of them, if they feel they can relate to these agencies. And I'm very sorry for breaking down, guys. I apologize.
Is it okay if we put like a link on our website?
Absolutely.
Okay, afterwards, I will get that information. And for those that are on the call this evening, we will get that information on our website within the next couple of days.
Wonderful.
Dr. Barron, thank you so much for your story and what you have shared with us tonight.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you everyone for being here.
Now I would like to introduce our Academy of Medicine President, Dr. Wyman Morris, presenting the 50-Year Physician Awards.
Thank you very much, Natalie, and thank you very much, Dr. Barron, for sharing your story. I think there's probably a lot of people on this call who are eager to help all your causes and look to your life for inspiration to find meaning in their own. And we'll certainly use the Academy's resources to make sure that can happen as easily as possible. Switching gears a little bit here, you know, it is one of the highlights of the year for the Academy is to be able to recognize our 50-year physician recipients. These are all physicians that graduated from medical school in 1970 and have had long and distinguished careers in medicine. And it's just a lot of fun for us to celebrate it as a group. And it makes me sad that we can't do this in person, but hopefully that'll happen again real soon. But it shouldn't diminish from the joy we have in sharing the achievements of all these physicians. So on the screen, you can see the list of all our 50-year physicians: Dr. John Babcock, Dr. David Berkowitz, Dr. Byron Dustin, Dr. Stanley Ignato, Dr. Richard Keyes, Dr. Wilfred Leader, Dr. Ann Lucky, Dr. Thomas Pankey, Dr. Hezekiah Shani, Dr. Peter Stern, and Dr. David Tondow. And we have about half of the doctors with us on the call who will be able to say a few words, hopefully, about their perspectives on their career. Our first physician is Dr. David Berkowitz, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to be on the call like we initially hoped. He graduated from the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine in 1970. He did his residency there from 70 to 73 in psychiatry. He went off to the U.S. Army for 2 years and came back and had been in private practice in Cincinnati for over 40 years as a psychiatrist and a sleep medicine specialist. So congratulations to Dr. Berkowitz. Now we have Dr. Brian Gustin, who is a cardiologist for several decades in this region. He actually graduated from the Cincinnati College of Medicine. He went off to New York City to do his internal medicine training, came back to Cincinnati for a cardiology fellowship. He practiced at Deaconess and Christ and Mercy hospitals for many, many decades and retired in 2016. He was president of his medical school class, and he won 2 teaching awards at Christ called the Golden Apple Award And one of his fondest memories from his training was being involved in developing, or at least administering, the first clot-dissolving drugs and procedures for heart attacks in Cincinnati, along with Dr. Tom Janicki and Dr. John Held. That was a pretty amazing technology gain for heart attack treatment at the time. He's married with 2 children, both of whom, incidentally, are amazing swimmers. One is a dermatologist and the other is at Google. So I think they're doing okay. Dr. Gustin has been kind enough to send a video to us, and we're going to watch that right now.
Hello, I'm Byron Dustin. I have, hard to believe, put in 50 years since medical school. Wyman Morris has asked me to answer 3 questions, and so I'm going to do that. I'd like to start with the first one. What is your fondest memory from the years you practiced medicine? I would say probably 2 things. One, teaching the residents at Christ Hospital during what we used to call dumb question rounds, where the students would ask things that they knew that nobody, that everybody else knew the answers to and that they didn't. And those were wonderful times. The second thing that I would comment on was the thrill of opening up an artery during an active myocardial infarction. The first time we did it, the whole room cheered. It was so exciting to see the heart attack stop cold when that artery opened up. Question 2, in your opinion, what is the key to physical and mental wellness for a physician, either while in active practice or retirement? While in active practice, it's having adequate time to interact with your patient so that you know that you're doing a good job. I think personal satisfaction is crucial in the patient's or in the doctor's sense of well-being. As far as retirement goes, it's just being busy and staying out of your wife's way. Third question, what is the biggest change in medicine that you've seen since you started practicing medicine? The first thing is the huge debt that patients or that medical students graduate with, just an enormous burden for them to deal with, and it affects the kind of practices they start. And I think in general, it's been a bad thing. And the other big change is the pressures to see patients quickly. I'm not sure on this statistic, but I think that the time with the patient, the actual time the doctor spends with the patient, is now only 7 or 8 minutes, which is clearly inadequate. And in conclusion, I'd like to say that in this era of Zoom, I actually do have on pants. Hello, I'm Byron.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Gustin. I believe you're on the call right now. Is that correct? Dr. Gustin? Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll move on then. Okay. I guess he's
There. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, perfect. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your video. It was fantastic. And I just want to congratulate you.
Good. I think that Dr. Barron puts me to shame, but I think that we've done some things to try and help with scholarships at the College of Medicine, again, to cut down on the debt these kids have so that they have the option of going into, as I call it, real medicine, where you practice internal medicine or family medicine. But anyway, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I don't feel bad. Dr. Barron puts us all to shame, but congratulations on 50 years as a physician. It really is truly a remarkable accomplishment, and and hopefully, you know, we'll see you around at an in-person event here in the near future. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, our next physician is Dr. Ignato, and unfortunately he was unable to be on the call tonight as we initially had hoped, but he did send in some information that I'd like to read to all of you about his career and life. He graduated from the University of Louisville School of Medicine in 1970. He did an internship and a fellowship in radiology and CT scanning at the time. That was a fellowship in the early 70s. He came back and started working at Fort Hamilton Hospital in 1978. He stayed there until 2012 and was medical director of the Department of Radiology there for several of those years. He actually is unbelievably still working now at ProScan, reading some films, which is just, you know, unbelievable. He has been married to his wife, Evelyn, for several years. He has 2 children and 6 grandchildren. When we asked him about the key to physical and mental wellness, he just said a very basic, healthy, balanced lifestyle, everything in moderation. The biggest change from his perspective in medicine was an unbelievable explosion of technology for radiologists going into computer and digital and using the internet, and how it's just transformed that specialty. So congratulations to Dr. Ignato. Next, we have Dr. Lucky, who's also on a call with us. She graduated from the University of the Yale University School of Medicine. She went on to get her pediatric residency at Children's Hospital, came back to Yale and completed what I assume is a fellowship in dermatology in 1981, and then pediatric dermatology after that. She came to Cincinnati, has been working with dermatologists at Southwest Ohio, as well as being an adjunct professor at Children's Hospital, and she's the director of the Cincinnati Children's Epidermolysis Bullosa Center, and she shared with us her fondest memories are seeing former students, residents, and junior colleagues, and even patients flourish in their careers. So Dr. Lucky, congratulations on 50 years as a physician, and we'd love to hear a few words from you.
Thank you very much. And a lot of thanks to the Academy of Medicine for doing the recognition. I've been very fortunate to be able to be still practicing and still contributing. As I say, the teaching, mainly at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, has really been a highlight for me. But second has been working with children with epidermolysis bullosa, which is a rare genetic disease causing severe multisystem illness, and having a wonderful team that I've assembled to take care of all these problems has really been a highlight of my career. And I just feel very fortunate to have been able to contribute for so many years. Thank you.
So do you have any advice or wisdom on how physicians, or how you were able to avoid burnout and remain mentally healthy through all these years of medicine?
I think that my patients have really kept me going. Just as the previous speaker said, spending time with your patients and seeing them grow up, especially in pediatrics, is just so rewarding, that it keeps you going.
Lovely. Well,
but you do have to spend that. You do have to spend that time.
Yeah.
It's not the disease; it's the patient.
That's lovely words. Thank you very much, Dr. Lucky, and congratulations on 50 years as a physician. Okay, next we have Dr. Stern, and there is no way I'm going to go through his whole CV. It is just way too long and in depth, but just some quick, it's just so impressive. We should put it on the website and let you all see it. He graduated from med school in 1970 from Washington University in St. Louis. He went on to Harvard to do an orthopedic residency and then a hand fellowship there. He then came back to Cincinnati and has been involved in hand surgery both at Tri-Health and at the University of Cincinnati since he came back in the late 70s. He has been past president of the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery, past president of the American Society for the Surgery of Hand. He's been a member of the American Orthopedic Association and has contributed so much to orthopedic surgery and to care of people in Cincinnati for decades. When we asked him what his fondest memory of all the years of practicing was, he said having the privilege to educate hundreds of orthopedic residents and nearly 70 hand surgeon fellows. When asked what the biggest change in medicine that he's seen since he started practicing, he had a wonderful quote. He said it was the migration from the practice of medicine to the business of medicine, which I think we all can relate to. And then the one thing we didn't hear from, and we'll ask him here shortly, because I think Dr. Stern, I believe you're on the call. So congratulations. And we would like to know your key to longevity and staying so interested and optimistic and enthusiastic about medicine and hand surgery over so many years. Okay. Dr. Stern, are you there? Probably. All right. Well, we'll move on. We'll try and get you at the end of the presentation here, if you happen to be there. Okay. Next, we have Dr. David Tondow, a cardiologist who I'd known for many, many years with his work at Good Samaritan Hospital. He graduated from medical school in 1970 from Georgetown University. He went on to do his internal medicine fellowship and his internal medicine residency and his cardiology fellowship at University of Pittsburgh. He went into the Army for a few years in the middle of all that. He became a fellow for the American College of Cardiology and a fellow for the American Heart Association in 1979. And he came to Cincinnati and worked for 40 years with Cardiology Associates of Cincinnati, retiring in the year 2007. When asked about his favorite memory from school, from medical school and training, he recalls very fondly cardiac grand rounds when he was a medical student at Georgetown, where every Thursday evening, 200 practicing cardiologists in the area would come and attend a 2-hour teaching display of diagnostic and physical findings. For a medical student at his time, he found it very awe-inspiring and impressionable, and certainly led to his influencing his career in cardiology. He also highlights the fact that as a member of the Cardiology Associates of Cincinnati, they were named, Good Sam was named as a top 50 hospital for cardiology when he was head of the group at that point, which was a professional highlight for him. And it wasn't just the cardiologist, it was the integrated care they had for their patients, the cardiovascular surgeon and nursing staff, and the results they got in such a team-friendly environment. He's been married longer than he's been a doctor. He has 3 daughters, 3 sons-in-laws, everybody very happily married, and 7 delightful grandchildren. When I asked about his fondest memories of medicine, he said he remembers most the enduring relationships with patients that he made throughout their lives and the thank you notes from families they sent me after their patients had died. He recalls one letter in particular. It was from 4 adult children of a 70-year-old woman who had had severe coronary artery disease that he cared for over 10 years. After she died, the letter was accompanied with a hand-crocheted white Afghan. And the note read, quote, "The Afghan is from all of us. My sister bought the yarn. I crocheted it. My brother paid the postage. We each wanted to have a part in sending it to you. Remember mother from time to time when you use it. You gave her hope and confidence, and we had many extra loving years because of her, with her because of you. Thank you again for everything you did. The children of Sally," which is just as lovely a letter as you could ever hope to receive in your professional career. He said the key to physical and mental wellness was to be lucky enough to both marry the right person and recognize it, which I think we all can support, especially given the demand and hours that interfere with family life as a physician. It requires someone to be very supportive and understanding, and you're not always able to reciprocate. He also feels that in retirement, it helps to have non-medical interests, and in his case, bridge, photography, and an exercise regimen are taking up his time. When he asked the biggest changes that he's seen in medicine, he said the biggest change from his perspective is hospital systems purchasing physicians group, especially those that admit patients directly or indirectly to their hospitals. Physicians are now employees of hospital systems and are subservient to them contractually. In the past, there was nothing to interfere with the bond between the physician and patient. Now there is. And as an aside, he says, of course, the EMR, which exists for the benefit of billing and coding purposes and does nothing for the physician and patient relationship. So Dr. Tondow, congratulations. It's nice to talk to you again. You have a few words to share with everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate the honor and being recognized for 50 years. I thought initially the award was given for 50 years of service to the Academy as opposed to being a physician for 50 years. But I do miss the relationship with patients, and the big change that I've seen is that, as someone before said, practice of medicine is no longer a practice, it's a business. And I think that, to me, is one of the biggest changes that I've seen in medicine. So we'll see what happens, but I do miss the relationship with patients, and I would be remiss if I didn't recognize someone that preceded me that said the key to happiness in a career is picking the right partner, being lucky enough to pick the right partner, and that was Warren Buffett. So yeah, I was lucky enough to pick the right partner, and have had a happy marriage as well as been blessed by having a happy career. And I do miss it, but I've been lucky in many respects. So thank the Academy and thank everyone involved. So.
Well, congratulations again. We have no interest in your exercise regimen, but we would love some photographs to post on the website if you have any.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
And so congratulations. And I think maybe we have Dr. Stern on now.
I should.
Hello.
Dr. Stern, congratulations. Can you hear us? Dr. Stern?
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you, yes.
Great.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I want to thank you and the Academy for the recognition. I think it's a great thing that you are doing. For me, the practice of medicine has truly been a privilege. I've inhaled all 50 years of it. My biggest thrill, of course, is involved in education. And I've been privileged to have trained a lot of residents and fellows, many of whom have gone on to really outstanding national stature and have become great educators in their own right. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Well, congratulations again. I happened to watch a video of you on the website about how if you had to do it over again, you would do hand surgery again. But I have to remind you that emergency medicine didn't exist when you started, and so maybe you would switch your thinking now that you know that emergency medicine is a career option.
Well, it certainly would be a possibility. At the time when I started, when I finished my orthopedic training, there was the rise of microsurgery, replantation, and free tissue transfer, and it was very technically and intellectually challenging for me and tremendously restorative to patients with major functional deficits. So I think that's what really got me hooked on hand surgery.
Well, I can't imagine the number of people in this area that you've helped and how many lives you've changed over the years. So thank you for all your service. And again, congratulations on 50 years as a physician.
Thanks so much.
Okay, and the following physicians were unable to join us tonight: Dr. John Babcock, Dr. Richard Keyes, Dr. Wilfred Leader, Dr. Thomas Pankey, and Dr. Hezekiah Shanai. Congratulations to all of you on 50 years as a physician. It truly is an amazing accomplishment, and to see everybody doing so well is really gratifying for all of us. So congratulations to everyone. Okay, now I'm going to introduce Ann Like, who's the president-elect of the Academy, and she's going to introduce our featured speaker tonight, Dr. Amy Meckley.
Good evening, and thank you all for attending this evening. I would also like to send my congratulations to all of our 50-year honorees and Dr. Barron this evening, and thank them for their dedication, contributions to medicine, and the communities and the patients they serve. They are truly an inspiration to all of us. Over the last several years, the Academy has been invested in the importance of physician wellness and well-being. And tonight, in keeping with this theme, as well as longevity, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Amy Meckley, an expert in wellness and lifestyle medicine. Dr. Meckley is a direct primary care physician, entrepreneur, clinical consultant, and teacher who has been practicing in Cincinnati since 1998. A native of Cincinnati, she earned her medical doctorate at the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine and completed her residency in family medicine at the University of Utah. She is board certified in both family medicine and lifestyle medicine, and she was the first board certified lifestyle medicine physician in the tri-state area. Her interest is in aligning lifestyle medicine principles within the practice of primary care that led her to open integrated family care in Cincinnati. She is a dynamic and inspirational speaker, and we know you will really truly enjoy her message this evening. We thank Dr. Meckley for her time, and one side note, would like to make sure that if you would like to ask Dr. Meckley questions, there is a question box, like a chat box, but it's called questions on your screen, and we will address these questions at the end of her presentation. So with that, I welcome Dr. Amy Meckley, my dear friend and colleague.
Thank you, Ann. It is absolutely lovely to be here. And here, I mean, you feel my very big virtual hug going out to all of you as we are connecting this evening. I would like to also share my congratulations to the recipients this evening. As I was listening, I recalled that not only did I have the privilege of learning from some of the recipients, I also had the grace with some of the care that was received by my family members, being a Cincinnati native. So again, thank you. We always talk about standing on the shoulders, and as a teacher myself, I think that's our greatest gift, is to continue to pass on the importance of what we do. And as a short aside, and I promise I'm going to start soon, I heard so much about the changes in medicine and the dissolution or the interruption of the patient-doctor relationship. So direct primary care, with what I do, is bringing that back to the forefront. So again, anyone interested in that, my partner, Dr. Glass, and I have a great interest in mission around physician well-being. So there are ways of bringing back, we always call it old-fashioned medicine on a high-tech platform. So tonight we're going to speak about longevity. And what I really want to focus on is some of the fun research that I've noticed over the past 10 to 15 years, and I'm going to bring forth a few of those researchers. But again, it's the application of this that I think is more important than the research itself. So what can we learn today that you can improve your tomorrow, so right away? All right, so just a quick overview so you know where we're going to go together this evening. First, we're going to define longevity, and then we're going to talk about the three researchers that I wanted to pull forward this evening. Then we're going to look at what simple changes you want to focus on and a personal action plan. So longevity, what we're going to talk about and focus on this evening is not only just life expectancy, but how good are those years? Those years we don't want to just live longer, but we want to enjoy those years and have very fulfilling years, as our recipients this evening were talking about. They all are having fantastic longevity and vital longevity. So I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Dan Buettner. He is our first researcher that I'm going to speak about this evening. He is a National Geographic Fellow and founder of Blue Zones. Hopefully some of you have heard about Blue Zones. This all came about in 2004 when Dan Buettner teamed up with the National Geographic Society and started to study the world's best longevity around the world. He worked with some significant other longevity researchers as well, and they found that these blue zone areas, actually it's 5 specific areas across the world, had the greatest population of people that lived not only to 100, but they were vital at that age. And it was 10 times greater than any other area in the United States. So again, from an epidemiologic perspective, this was quite significant. So in his, and an aside I think is really funny, why they're actually called blue zones, I just found this out this year, and I've been reading about him for about 15 plus years, is the researchers could only find blue markers, and they started marking these areas in blue, so that's where the blue zones came from, which I thought there was a greater meaning, but I think that's kind of interesting. So in this body of research where they found these 5 areas across the world that had this existence of the population that was vital after the age of 100, out of 100, they started to notice patterns. So I think the question we want to know from this research is, what were the patterns? What was going on there at these places? Do they have anything in common, and what can we learn from that? One of his ongoing projects now is to create communities that replicate some of these habits or behaviors that he found. So let's visit Sardinia. So Sardinia has the world's highest concentration of male centurions. It is the 2nd largest Mediterranean island, and it's in the region of Italy. I'm just going to take you on a quick world tour here. The second area is in Icaria, Greece, and that's an Aegean island with one of the world's lowest rates of middle-age mortality and the lowest rate of dementia. You'll see dementia is really an important disease to study, especially when it comes to lifestyle medicine. We're starting to have a greater idea of what happens in the brain with dementia, and we feel it's more an inflammatory disease that probably has something or more in common with diabetes than some of the other diseases. The next area of the world that showed this greatest vitality of centurions was in the peninsula in Costa Rica. This also, actually, this had the lowest age of middle-age mortality and the 2nd highest concentration of male centurions. I think what's really interesting in all these places is they'd all look wonderful to go visit, and I think that's important. So a 4th area in the world was actually in the United States, and that is a concentration of the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma, California. On average, they live 10 years longer than their counterparts in North America. Again, what's happening here where they're having this longevity and this great vitality in life? And we'll talk about that because that's going to be the point of tonight. The last area that they found in the blue zones was in Okinawa, Japan. And again, this area, what the claim to fame is that they have females over the age of 70 that are the longest lived population in the world. So some of the other islands were more males. This is where the longest lived females were. So what do they have in common? What can we learn from this research? Well, as you can see here, and I think you can see my pointer, these larger circles are specific to these different areas. The overlap is what they have in common. This central portion right here, you're seeing what the importance is or what they have in common, what their behaviors show us is that family is very important. They do not smoke. They eat a mainly plant-based diet. They have constant, moderate physical activity. This isn't going to the gym for an hour. This is activity that is you're engaging in throughout your day. Social engagement, very important. And then I love this, legumes. That is an overlap of all of these areas. So I get this question a lot, what the heck is a legume? Think of it as peas. It's a family of peas, but included in this, it's actually a fruit, which is interesting, but it's included in the legumes are beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils, one of my absolute favorites from a nutrition perspective, also from a easy to make type of perspective. You can throw it in so many different meals. Carob, soybeans, peanuts, pteromine, all of those are different types of legumes. And now you know. So from the Blue Zones research, he came up with what's been termed the Power 9. And this is a little bit of the claim to fame of the whole Blue Zones arena, is this Power 9. So I'm going to start at the top of the 12 o'clock position and just go through them one by one. So first and foremost, it's about movement. And what he found, what Dan found, is that these populations moved naturally throughout their day. It was just part of their day. And one of the issues we have now is our sedentary lifestyles, especially in front of computers, our cell phones, and our work, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic. We've all, I believe, have become even a little more sedentary. So we have to be very thoughtful about moving naturally throughout our day. The second, as we go around the clock, the second area is the right outlook, is what he termed. But I think having meaning and purpose in your life, I have found to be extremely important in many of my patients' lives, as well as many of the colleagues that I've spoken with. So that purpose and meaning in medicine, just for us as physicians, as we were talking about just previously, is critically important. I think it was Dr. Tondow that talked about it. We want to make sure that there is purpose in what we do. So in general, what is the purpose and meaning of your life? And in retirement, that you get an additional run at it. What now? What can I do now that is still, not still, but even a new purpose and meaning, things that talents and skills that you may not have used during your previous career or lifestyle. The next one we talk about is downshifting. It is very important to know how to downshift, how to leave work at work, how to walk away from certain stressors, and know that you can shed it like a second skin. It'll be there to pick up the next morning. So different ways of downshifting. One of the things I love to talk about is intentional play and actual rest and playful rest. This is things like checkers or or card games, or where you're resting, but you're actually a little more actively resting. And that's a form of downshifting. Then as we go around the clock, we go into the nutrition sector. This is one of the greatest levers that you can pull when it comes to living a very healthy and vital life, is the nutrition, what you put in your body. The 80% rule, I'll be honest with you, I have a hard time myself doing this, but it's stopping to eat when you're 80% full. So listening to your body and knowing that you've had enough nutrition and you can leave what's there, or just not taking as much on a routine basis. The plant slant, again, in common with all of these populations, were that they mainly focused on plants as their main source of nutrition. Not 100% vegan, not any specific type of diet, but focused on plants. This makes a lot of sense in my personal knowledge base and all the years that I've spent studying this, studying wellness around nutrition. We do know that plants are naturally anti-inflammatory, and many of the diseases that we are trying to either prevent or cure have a strong inflammatory basis. So that makes just a tremendous amount of sense to me, is looking for just introducing and continuous feeding of plants in your diet. Wine at 5 is just a nod to a little bit of alcohol. We see this obviously in many of the islands, and the one that comes to mind most is Sardinia. But having a single glass of wine, again, in moderation, and again, I believe this is part of the downshifting, knowing that, hey, I have this glass of wine, it separates my workday from my relaxation time. As we go into, we look at the connection. The connection is very important with your community, the right tribe. So having a common friend group or a common tribe, I love that word. It's your people. I hear people talk about this all the time. This isn't my sister, but she's my person. It's just having those people that you know are in your life that are a constant source of happiness, joy, camaraderie, but also there for the downs, and you can go to them. So just keeping that right tribe around you. Loved ones first. This is that connection with family, knowing that you're part of family and that you're dedicating your time, resources, and energy to those people, and you have that connection. And this also then flows into the connection of belonging. You belong into this community and purpose, and you have that purpose in that community. So again, these are the Power 9 that Dan Buettner, it came from Dan Buettner's research of the centurions. So I think there's a lot that we can learn from here that isn't all that hard or that difficult to change, just making sure we're resourcing our attention in the right areas. So next, I'd like to introduce you to Walter Longo. Walter Longo, his current research is around fasting mimicking diet. I'm not sure if anyone's heard about this. It's different than intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is very trendy, has gotten a lot of attention, but again, this is a little bit different. This is a fasting mimicking diet. He is the Edna M. Jones Professor of Gerontology and Biological Sciences. He's a researcher and director of the Longevity Institute at USC, University of Southern California. So that's where he works from. The discovery of this fasting mimicking diet has been very interesting as far as both in the application to cancer and aging and longevity. I want to show you this next slide as we talk about why he came across this. So as he was looking at actually yeast, he was looking at the life cycle of yeast, he found that yeast had some periodic fasting. And with this fasting came an increased resistance to stress and a longer lifespan as he compared different sub-cohorts of this yeast. He then applied it to a mouse model, and he started this periodic fasting mimicking diet. And I should go back and explain what a fasting mimicking diet. You're not completely fasting. So fasting means nothing to eat or drink, or you can do water fasting, and you're fasting for that period of time, not bringing in any calories or nutrients. This is a fasting mimicking diet where you're still bringing in nutrients, but it's very specific of what you're bringing in. Your body sees it as fasting, which is the key here. When he did it to the mice population, he saw it, what was happening was almost like a reboot. The mice cells were actually rebooting their systems, and this then generated a lower fat, lower cancer rates, lower inflammatory diseases. And the inflammatory diseases we speak of are heart disease, diabetes, many metabolic diseases. An increase in your immune system and an increase in cognitive rejuvenation, which I think is interesting. It has to do with that neuroplasticity, and an overall increase in lifespan. So then he said, well, what would this really work in humans? And he has noticed the same thing that's happening. We're getting a reboot. There's a regeneration markers that are coming, and we're seeing lower incidence of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and specifically cancer. When you look at his studies, and again, the application of this is different for different cohorts. So if we're treating cancer, per se, I have a patient who's using this for her MS and is having great success. So treating different disease states, there's going to be a little bit of different prescription for how this is done. But with the mice studies, it was twice a month for 4 days. And again, that's how they resulted in this type of results, or that's what the results were here. And then as he's gone on to more specific trials, we're seeing additional benefits in different disease states. Interestingly enough, the focus is less than 65. He sees this generation happening in general populations that are younger than 65. And you want to make sure you're still getting all the nutrients, which is why it's a fasting mimicking diet. And you will also want to be maintaining your muscle mass while you're doing this. But the exciting part, actually, I'm going to go into now and just talk a little bit about the science. The reason he found this is he studied and was able to discover 2 significant pathways of aging. This is the TOR-SK6 and the PKA sugar. It has to do, we didn't need to go to Dr. Blackburn yet. It has to do with the aging pathway and certain proteins that get activated or deactivated by, and I want you to draw your attention to here, certain nutrients. So very specifically, he studied what nutrients will trigger this and what won't. And what was interesting, it is a low protein diet that is important, not a high protein diet, and a low sugar, I think it says it here, low protein, low sugar, and relatively high good fat diet. So again, I think that's very interesting, especially when we have this whole protein myth still being propagated, that we need a high protein diet. And I find that honestly not to be supported by science at all. And again, I think as Dr. Lucky was saying, if you have any questions, because there's a lot of information here, please feel free to use the question box, and I'm trying to continue on so that we can have time for that, because I'd really like to know what you are interested in and if I could answer any other questions that you have. So the third scientist I'd like to introduce tonight or speak of is Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn. As you may know, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, or the Nobel Prize, in 2009. And this was for the discovery of the functions of telomerase, which is the enzyme, and the function of the actual telomeres. So telomeres are these little end caps on the ends, that's why they're called end caps, of the chromosomes. Very important because they work as protectors when this chromosome goes through multiple cellular division. And when these become smaller and wear down, that's when you have more issues with the interruption of healthy DNA. And as you know, that's where certain cancers can come from and other disease states. So because of her studies, it was known that these telomeres shorten after the cell division, and then the telomerase, which is the enzyme, the function of it goes down with aging. So right now, as we are sitting here gathering tonight, our telomeres are shortening. It's just a part of what happens in the aging cycle. Over time, as they become shorter, that also can be, you can measure that, and then also can be an indication of the age and general health of the individual. So there are people that have actually had their telomeres measured. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the application in one of the studies that came from this. So Dr. Dean Ornish and Dr. Blackburn and multiple other people started to study these effects on men who had biopsy-proven prostate cancer. They wanted to see what would certain lifestyle, i.e. nutrients and other healthy habits, change both the telomerase activity, which is the enzyme, as well as the depth or length, I should say, of the actual telomeres. And the study was done in 2013. It was actually published in the Lancet, and it did show that by improving their diet, so very specific, very similar to what we talked about the blue zones, a very plant forward diet. And then I put up the 6 focus areas of lifestyle medicine, which is what I practice and have a background in, looking at just a comprehensive lifestyle change program. Having the men go through this program, they did both improve the length of the telomeres and increase the telomerase enzymes. And this is what I thought was fascinating. They did it in 12 weeks. It only took 3 months for them to see significant changes. So it wasn't anything like you would expect to think like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do this for a long, long time to even see anything significant. It was done, and they noticed it in 12 weeks. A fascinating second part of this study, outside of the telomere research, it was found that the majority of the oncogenes were downregulated. The prostate cancer oncogenes were also downregulated in this 12-week period. So literally, by what you do, what you eat, specifically how you take care of yourself, can actually downregulate cancer genes. So this spun off many other research studies that have continued to reprove this outcome over and over in different disease states as well as different cancers. So it's been an exciting area to see. So what does this mean for you tonight? So I'd like everyone now to focus on where you are right now, what your current habits are. No shame, no blame. It is what it is. We've gotten here for lots and lots of reasons. Is there anything that you'd say, gosh, this might be a time to make some changes? So these are the areas that I'd encourage you to look at. Your nutrition. Is there a place that you can add additional plants? Is there a place that maybe you can cut out some sugar? Movement. Do you get that 20 minutes of movement? And that is key for mental health. Do you get that 150 minutes a week? Are you doing anything to regain or to keep muscle? One of my favorites is the resistance bands now that I use. Really easy to use, very simple, and very, very effective. Do you have meaning and connections in your life? If not, can you cultivate a tribe? Make room for that tribe. Very important. How do you manage your stress? We'll talk about that playful rest. Sleep. Do not donate sleep anymore to things that are not meaningful in your life. We all try to escape a little bit sometimes after a work day. We try to get away from things and we'll watch TV or do other things that might not be really supporting where we want to be in a healthy lifestyle. And we do that in lieu of sleep. So thinking about that sleep is very important, and making sure it's a restorative sleep. And then considering on what goes into your body. I will quote Dr. David Katz, who is one of the leaders in lifestyle medicine. He talks about what we do with our forks, our fingers, and our feet, the 3 Fs. So what's on our forks, what happens with our fingers, and what do we do with our feet? So are we using and abusing alcohol or tobacco, other drugs? Are we putting in processed products? Are we not walking and moving? So this is just a time to create an awareness and then think about it. And now I want to call to action, and we're going to actually do something that makes that thought where you have that aha moment actually then pull over into an action plan, and then the action plan becomes a habit. So normally I would do this. I do this with all my patients, and when I do this in larger conferences, I actually do a demonstration with a person in the room. So we're just going to do it with each other in a mindful way. So think about the area that you personally hit to. You said, gosh, this is the one area, and just pick one. You know, that's what the word priority means. It's one. Pick one area that you'd like to change, and then I want you to have a specific goal. So if I would say, I really want to stop eating junk food or processed food, that's great, but it's not specific. So what I can say is, I want to decrease my intake of sodas from 5 a week to 1 a week. That's specific. Or I would like to walk 20 minutes every day. That's specific. Now, I just want to get more activity. That's not specific. So right now, create a specific one. Second thing is make it measurable. So it's going to be 20 minutes every single day. Very specific and measurable. Has to be attainable. So that's the third part. I'm not going to say I'm going to go meditate for an hour and a half every morning because I know that's really good for me and I did it once and it felt really good. That does not work with my lifestyle. That's going to last for about 3 days and I'm going to say, oh my gosh, there's no way. I've got too many other obligations. This is not going to happen. So make sure it's attainable. Fourth is relevant. Make sure that it's specific to where you want to be. It is relevant and you'll be able to connect it into a meaningful part of your life. And last is it's time specific. So I'm going to do this every day for 12 weeks until I talk to your accountability partner again. Or I'm going to do this on Monday, Friday, and Saturday. And my favorite thing is most of us live by calendars, is you actually put it on the calendar like an appointment. So again, you make it very time specific. And that way, whatever your goal is, you're going to be much more likely to get it done. And then I'd love for you to share that with somebody. I absolutely love for you to share that with share it with your physician, share it with someone special in your life, someone else that you can just check in and say, okay, I'm going to be doing this, and I think you're an important person in my life, so I'm sharing this with you, and I'm going to come back and talk to you about it in so many weeks to see how I'm doing. So on that note, then I want to open it up for discussion. And I will ask Dr. Lucky if there have been any questions that have come in. And I would be careful because I'm a good filler and I can talk about a whole lot of fun things and go off on very fun tangents. But again, this picture, I love this picture because it reminds me of how powerful this tool is. And this tool is exactly that. It's the fork. It's one of the most powerful tools you have.
Hey, Dr. Meckley, I have one question. When you talk about a plant-based diet, could you be more specific about meat and then fish as that fits into that diet?
Sure. That's a great question. So when I talk about, my favorite is called a whole foods plant-based, and you can Google WFPB. So I tell a lot of my patients whole foods plant-based, and that means food as they are grown. So that strawberry right there is whole food and it's plant-based. It's not strawberry puree. It's not strawberry flavored yogurt, it's the plant. So whole foods, plant-based. And when we talk about plants, it's things that are categorized as such. So the opposite of plants is going to be animal. And I always say anything that has 2 eyes and lips is going to be have a liver, and it's going to be an animal. So if you think about it, and a lot of people say, well, I eat fish because we've heard that fish is good, but fish is an animal-based food, and so it doesn't really count. It is not a plant-based food, and it doesn't mean you need to be vegan, and it doesn't mean you do not need to eat any animal products. But we do know that animal is a higher inflammatory component to it, where plants are anti-inflammatory in general. And we also, I think the biggest confusion there from a protein perspective is a lot of people are like, well, I need my protein, therefore I need some type of animal products. That's what they always say. Well, I have a plant strong diet, but I need to get my protein in, so I'll eat fish or chicken. We can survive, actually we thrive on plant-based proteins just fine. We don't actually need animal-based proteins. But that doesn't mean you don't need to eat them. I think it's an adjustment for most people of saying, I just want to bring more plants in so it naturally crowds out the animal, so it'll naturally crowd out the inflammatory component. But the other really important fact is, specifically when it comes to heart disease, because heart disease is one of the greatest killers in the United States, is looking at your cholesterol. And so a lot of people say, I only do organic chicken and farm fish or high omega-3 fish. That has just as much cholesterol, if not more, than some of the other meats. So people will feel like they're doing really well by doing lean meats, but if you're looking at decreasing your cholesterol intake, that's actually not the right solution. So, and I'll just round this out with all the many discussions I have with patients, is a lot of times this is new information for a lot of people, because they're like, wait a second, I thought I was doing well by eating the animal. And so again, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but for most of us, we consume too much animal-based protein. So bringing that down, and the best way of doing that is crowding out. You just keep bringing in as much good plants. So instead of, I always tell the story, instead of having 5 chicken breasts for my family of 5, when I started transitioning some of the way that I cooked, I went down and I would take 1 chicken breast and I would put it like in a stir fry with everything else. So again, the ratios were just much better. So even shifting would be helpful. And again, and then very personalized information depending upon what your needs for your actual health goals and your conditions.
Okay,
so
what are examples of plant-based protein that everybody knows?
Great, beans. So beans are wonderful. Chia seeds are great in protein. Tofu, soy, and soybeans are excellent forms of plant-based proteins. Nuts have proteins. It's an interesting thing that everything that plants have all plants have protein in it. It's just the higher protein ones that I kind of named off quickly off the top of my head. So where a lot of people have a hard time thinking about this, I kind of point to the cow and I say, how does a cow get so big? And how do they get all that muscle mass? They eat plants, grass and things like that. So they're getting all their protein from the plants. When we eat them, we're eating like a second-class protein. We're eating the protein that they ate from the grass or the other types of plants, and then we're eating them. So again, gorillas and cows, they're in 100% plant-based diet. That's what they eat. And as you can see how big they are. So there's plenty of protein in the plants that we actually eat. But I know for me, I always like to have a nice variety of proteins. So beans, and on the legumes that I talked about before, lentils are a great source of protein. Quinoa is actually a complete protein with all the amino acids in there. So lots of good plant-based proteins.
Okay, and one final follow-up, just an egg or egg white, is that considered animal-based and something that's minimized just as much as red meat, white meat, fish?
Yeah, I love these questions because this is where everybody kind of blows their mind, is like, what a second. So I always tease and I send it back to my, I said, what do you think? Where does the egg come from?
Well, I thought you were going to say animal. I was just hoping for a different answer.
I know. Everybody's like, here's the good news. Red wine is plant-based. So I always lead or end with that because it was like, oh, shoo.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying nothing. And that's where we want to be real careful. I'm not saying there is no such thing as a perfect diet. You can be vegan and do Diet Coke and Doritos. That is not a good nutrition plan. So it's not about the labeling. And yes, eggs are animal-based. Now, the yolk contains the majority of the cholesterol. So if you're watching cholesterol and you still want to do eggs, you would do egg whites. And then maybe sparingly. And then you would take those egg whites and you'd put asparagus, roasted asparagus, spinach, tomatoes, onions, all the good stuff in there. And you're getting a huge amount of plants and in with your egg whites. So again, it's not an all or none. It's a shifting, and it's a shifting in what's acceptable to you and what your goals are. But the fun news is as patients start to transition, they come back in and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm sleeping better. My joints feel better. I am playing with my grandkids more. The lever that you're pulling with nutrition is such a strong lever. It can have an effect on so much, on so many things. So hopefully I answered those questions. But those are great questions. That's a lot of the questions that I get initially.
Hi, Dr. Meckley. I have another question, and it has to do with olive oil in our diets, particularly like when we focus for the Mediterranean diet. Where does that fit?
Great question. So what's really exciting is if you look at the study of health and wellness and the science behind it, it's the majority of them, 85 to 87% of them, all talk about a high plant diet. Oil is one of those things that people love to argue about, and it's such a small smidgen. So I try to deflect from that a little bit and say, hey, let's really get all the good stuff in and not worry so much about that. So good quality oils, I think, are fine. It depends upon what your health goals are. If you've already had multiple stents placed and you have severe coronary artery disease, I would reconsider that. If not, as we see in the Mediterranean diet, there's some really good, the omega-3s, the omega-6s that can come from multiple types of plant-based oils. So again, you just use it sparingly, and you use it in a way that you're getting the benefit without getting a lot of the harm. So I'll see people that they'll take the big white bread, which again, go whole grain if you can, and they dip it in the olive oil and the spices, and they're just, like a teaspoonful, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of concentrated saturated fat. So you just kind of use it in healthy ways, but there are some absolute benefits to oils.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I wonder, could you elaborate on the fasting mimicking diet? Like, what are you doing over those 4 days? And then one word I have for everybody listening is that if you're a physician with a busy practice, is it just going to bottom you out those 4 days when you're trying to get through a busy day of work?
So again, this is more intense, the actual 4 day. Well, if you go on his website, Walter Longo, he's got multiple types, and even a single day of a fasting mimicking diet can have a great effect. So when he's doing the 4 day fasting mimicking diet, these are disease specific. So if you're really trying to change the course of MS. So that's with my one patient. She has done this multiple times, and her MS is significantly improving. If you have somebody who's in cancer treatments, this is where some of those studies are. So the degree of the treatment, as we know for physicians, sometimes has to do with what you're treating. But the good news is even if twice a year you did a 2 day or a 1 day fasting mimicking diet, it does show that cellular reboot, which is really exciting. So again, if you're looking at prevention, you're probably not going to have to go as an intensive treatment as you're looking for a cure, or a change in the disease itself. What he does now is a little bit of proprietary. So you can purchase his fasting mimicking diet because it is very specific and prescriptive. It's mainly based on some teas because you don't want to show your body that you're eating, and because then it switches off of that reboot. It then goes back to its normal cellular activity. So there's very specific teas, different other types of, I believe it's oats, just different. And what he does is he's able to put that in a package form. I can't tell you all the profits from any of that goes back into his his research foundation. He's a good guy. He's a real good guy, because I'm always very careful in this wellness field because there's just a lot of stuff out there. $32 billion industry, and I can tell you probably about 70% of that is gobbledygook. You know, it's just not science-based. But he is, I do believe that he is legitimate, and like I said, all of those profits go back. So it's a very specific, like I said, nutrition. So your nutrition plan, so you're getting good nutrition, but your body is feeling it as a fasting state. So that's where the word fasting mimicking diet comes from. And literally one day can have an effect. So you can do a 1 day to a 3 day to a 4 day, and it just depends upon what you're looking for as an outcome.
So as a follow-up question, how do you feel about the other thing you sort of briefly mentioned on, is this intermittent fasting on 18 hours of the day, every day, you're fasting?
I think it's helpful. It's helpful for some people. And then one thing I do believe, there is no one ultimate diet. There's no one ultimate, and I hate the word diet, except that it gets us focused on what we're eating, because you go on a diet to go off a diet. We're talking about lifestyle. So there's not one ultimate nutrition plan, I think, for everyone. I do have issues with certain types of nutrition plans, and I'm happy to answer questions about that. But in general, some fasting is shown to be positive because our bodies aren't always meant to be fed. So for some people, if they do notice a great difference, if they start limiting their meal period to a 6 to an 8, 6 hour period or an 8 hour period, sometimes doing that on a rotating basis, like they'll do that for a week and then they'll switch it around. The science is hard around that because there's so many variations, but doing some fasting is, I think, helpful for the body in general. So again, I think things you would look for are obviously certain types of blood work, mental clarity, focus, energy. But that's, again, I do a very personalized approach. So it's what are we looking for and how might we get there, and what other things are happening in your system. So if you're diabetic, obviously that's going to change things. If you are 80 years old or you're 18 years old, that is going to change things. So did Dr. Morse, did that answer that for you about the intermittent fasting?
Thank you very much. And then I have one non-diet question for you, and that's, you kind of mentioned, at the end of the day, shed your skin, go home, maybe have 1 glass of wine, and say you're going to pick it up the next day. I think for physicians that's really difficult, and I'm just wondering if you have any, physician-specific advice as to how to do that. I mean, I know that's kind of a hard question, but
no, it's a great question. We're wired differently, so a few of the techniques that I train people in or talk about is literally, as you leave the doorway, think of it as a portal. You're leaving the doorway. I used to have a tree that I would look at, and I would think, okay, and again, this is where I bring some of my own spirituality into it. I give it to God and I say, okay, I'm hanging all of this on this tree. I will pick it up when I come back, but I can't bring, and it's more of the emotion, because sometimes we all think about our patients, and at night we'll be like, oh, I didn't get the CBC. I need to make sure I get that CBC tomorrow, or, different things will come into our heads. And I think we need to give grace and space to that, because we are detailed, intelligent, thinking beings, and our brain is always on.
Yeah, so, and I think, not to interrupt you, but a lot of people, I think, are coming home and finishing their paperwork at home. They're charting at home at night now on the computer. Yeah. And so it becomes hard to separate that sometimes.
I think that's dangerous. And again, that's one of the reasons I practice medicine the way I do now, and I'm trying to help many others figure out how to do that. I think that's almost like an unfunded mandate that happened to us, and we didn't agree to it. So I think trying to create, this is where when I was the medical director at Christ Hospital for a while, and we were trying to implement on team-based care. One of the best things I think anybody can do that's in a fee-for-service system and working in an RVU system in an EMR is to figure out a way to hire a scribe. I think they're worth their money, worth their weight in gold, however that saying goes. If you can get your work done at your work, which I know when I was in a fee-for-service system, I had to see 37 patients to break even. In a family medicine practice, that's shouldn't be the case. So I think a scribe is extremely important, just as a very practical way to bring joy back in medicine and leave the work at the work, because it does deteriorate your soul when you're doing meaningless work on your, what you should be considering, your downshifting time or your family time. So I think that's dangerous. So I wouldn't say, oh, here's a technique to keep that going. I would say, look at ways of changing that. And if you do need to do it, just try to say, okay, maybe on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'll allow myself to do it. And then you accept that. You don't fight it anymore. And you say, that's okay, I'm accepting this because this is what I need to do right now. And you don't go home on Tuesday and stay angry, because that's even worse. You just say, it's okay, this is my time to get my caught up on my charting, and I'm accepting it. And I'm gonna take a deep breath, and I'm just gonna try to then include it there. Or outside of that, again, you have those boundaries and you say, no, I need to do that and to separate. But then when you do finally separate, again, the screen time at night is dangerous. We need time. We need downshifting time before we try to sleep. So try to get off that screen at least an hour before you plan on going to bed.
But like you said, I think it's very hard not to be angry. I think that's the one thing. There's certain things you have to do, but it's hard not to be angry when you worked all day and you have to spend 2 hours on a computer at night and you miss dinner or family time.
And I completely agree with you. And I challenge, and again, not that this is where that moral imperative comes in, that I think is so important. That, we say we have to. I think we need to say stop. We need to change that. We need to say, you know what, we are the most valuable people in this cogwheel of medicine, even though we are not the decision makers anymore. But we have to, I think, take that place back and say, this is not healthy. This is not good. I'm supposed to be a role model for my patients. And I'm slugging it through, and I'm creating this bad energy and this bitterness, and then it rubs off in my staff and, my family. And I know that I say this passionately because I know there's better ways. So I think we say enough. It's not, we know that actually we're not giving good patient care when we're fatigued and we're tired and we're not restored. More mistakes happen, more people get sued. We do not do better outcome medicine, which is what we need to be doing in this disease-ridden United States. So I am absolutely passionate about that, and it's not our fault. It's not, we cannot say, okay, if I could just go a little faster, if I just knew how to type quicker. We need system change. And I think it's absolutely time to do it, period. If you listen to most of the recipients this evening, when you asked about what has changed the most in medicine, it's unfortunate because it's the business and it's the overtaking of that doctor-patient relationship, something that we behold as sacred and healing. So I just, not a call to arms, but just a gathering of good minds to say, this is not the way this profession is done. This is not what we need to continue to be a part of. Things will change, but again, I'll be careful not to go on. But is that help? Because I agree. I think where we are right now, it's not healthy. So I wouldn't say I want to help people, because that's what we used to do for physician wellness. Let me help you meditate. Let me help you, see 2 more patients so that you can, raise your RVU status so you get that extra bonus. I think it's acknowledging the moral degradation that's happening by not having that patient-doctor relationship and that meaning in medicine, and putting that as a priority for some of this health care transformation.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy, because that is what we here at the Academy are also trying to partner with people like you in the community to make our lives better and back to, the beauty of medicine. So thank you.
We are a strong group. Oh, thank you guys. I really do. I appreciate being part of this celebration. This has been lovely. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I apologize. So again, I'll just end the presentation there, and I think I'd like to hand it back to Natalie then for the conclusion of the evening.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Meckley. And thank you to all, to Dr. Barron and Dr. Meckley and all our recipients tonight for such a lovely evening. It really was surprisingly personal and for me moving to hear all this, and I think it'll be helpful in many ways moving forward. Just a quick note before we sign off, we have a few events coming up this spring. I would especially point out April 22nd and May 18th, where we're talking again about mental health in the era of COVID. And then I'm personally very excited by Dr. Odell Owen's talk that he's doing on May 18th about the social determinants of health. And I really recommend everybody who can make it to that. And again, thank you all for your time. Congratulations to everyone. And thank you for such a lovely evening. Good night.